JC, the BC Lions are 8.5-point favorites over the Calgary Stampeders on Friday when the two teams face off at BC Place Stadium. Calgary can clinch a playoff spot with a win and a Saskatchewan loss, while a BC victory would force Winnipeg to win at least one of their two remaining games to clinch first in the West Division. Which team will get it done?
I think this has to be the Lions, right? If it was a stronger opponent, I might have doubts, but BC proved last week against Hamilton that they still have the fire, they still have the ability to beat top opponents, and Calgary is not a top opponent. So they're going to come out here with a little less to play for, but still stake in the game. Vernon Adams Jr., I think, is going to play despite the knee injury. But even if he wasn't, Dane Evans is more than enough to beat the lowly Stampeders. I think this is going to put the playoff race into the hands of the Saskatchewan Roughriders once again.
Yeah, I see the BC Lions winning and covering here, and that's not just because Calgary was completely unable to catch passes this past week. I just think the BC Lions are a motivated team. I think they have a big chip on their shoulder. From that loss a couple weeks ago to Winnipeg, this team does not want to miss any opportunity to finish first in the West. Yes, their chances of finishing first are very small. Winnipeg has Edmonton and Calgary for their two remaining games. I think they're likely to win at least one, if not both of those contests. They only need to win one to clinch first place, regardless of what the Lions do. But the Lions go first here. They're not going to miss this opportunity. I certainly think they win, and I'm even happy to take them minus 8.5. As much as that is a big spread, I don't think the Lions see this as a meaningless game. I think they'll get it done. The Toronto Argonauts are 9.5-point road favorites over the Saskatchewan Roughriders on Saturday at Mosaic Stadium. The Argos have a 3-1 record over their past four meaningless games, though it remains unclear who will start at quarterback. The Riders have lost 6 straight games, though they could clinch a playoff spot with a win and a Calgary loss. Can the Argos keep rolling despite having nothing to play for?
I did some soul searching when thinking about this game, and I went, wow, if Cameron Dukes is the guy who starts, does this change what I think of this matchup? Does that give the Saskatchewan Roughriders a glimmer of hope and a chance? And no, it doesn't, because the Saskatchewan Roughriders have folded up tent. That locker room is done with football right now. I don't think they have a shot, regardless of who is under center for the Argos. The only difference, I will say, is if Cameron Dukes is playing, I think Saskatchewan can cover in this game. But if it's Chad Kelly, they don't have a shot in hell.
The rumor mill a few weeks ago suggested that Chad Kelly was going to play Toronto's home games and not play their road games, and that has actually borne out well. He did not start in Toronto's loss in Winnipeg. However, he did play in both of the team's home games, the win over Edmonton, the win over Ottawa. To me, this is a game that Cameron Dukes is likely to start. I'm not saying that as a fact, but I expect Cameron Dukes will start. The catch is Cameron Dukes played well the last time we saw him. I was very impressed with him. He didn't make a ton of crazy dynamic throws, but he looked like he was operating Ryan Dinwiddie's offensive system extremely efficiently. He did not look like a raw rookie in the CFL. There was poise. There was confidence. He was accurate. He's able to move the ball with his feet better than I think some of Winnipeg's defenders anticipated he would. So for that reason, I am taking the Argos to win. I'm also doing that because I've gone on the record saying I didn't think Saskatchewan was going to win another game this year. And I will say, though, I think the Riders can cover this spread with Dukes at the helm. It is a wide spread, especially at 9.5 points. I'm happy to take Saskatchewan plus a minimum of 8. If it comes below 8, I would take Toronto to cover, but I will take Toronto to win, Sask to cover.
The Winnipeg Blue Bombers are 12-point home favorites over the Edmonton Elks on Saturday in what will be Edmonton's final game of the season. The Blue Bombers can clinch first place in the West Division with a victory and won their first 2 meetings of the season with the Elks, one of which came with Trey Ford under center. Who you got?
I've got the Winnipeg Blue Bombers to win this game, and that's no disrespect to the Elks, who, again, have played well for the last half of the season. They didn't obviously get it done enough to push for a postseason spot. Their loss to Montreal last week, I thought was frankly quite disappointing. But with that being said, I mean, this club, I mean, they're still 4-4 in their last 8 games, which is more than you could say for at least one team that will be heading to the postseason this year. So I like the Bombers to win. I also like them to cover. I think Winnipeg is going to come out here looking in front of a raucous crowd at IG Field to make a statement that they are going to host the West Final. I still think Trey Ford will keep things interesting. But despite the 12-point spread, I'm going to take the Bombers to cover here because I think they are just that jacked up to cover this spread, or pardon me, to not only make the playoffs, but make a statement about making the playoffs.
You smell that, Hodge?
What am I smelling, JC?
Maybe it's just me, but to me, it reeks like a trap game in here.
Oh,
You
please
agree?
don't tell me you're taking Edmonton. Really?
I think Winnipeg has had a tendency this season to come out flat in games where you thought that they should have blown out opponents. I mean, they lost to Ottawa, for God's sake, right? And the last time they played Edmonton, yeah, they won that game, but Trey Ford had them up by 3 touchdowns at the start before Winnipeg had to come back. You're coming off a bye and that huge win against BC. I think Winnipeg thinks they have the West entirely locked up. This is an opponent that's very easy to overlook, but also one that if you give even just an inch to with Trey Ford, that they can put up big points in a short period of time. I'm certainly taking the Elks to cover this wide spread. I think they can pull the upset in this game.